The one thing that for sure you should always consider is talking to customers. I was talking about the importance of listening to people, to customers, to users. And let's not forget that store associates, for example, but also our customer service team are the very first point of data collection. We can ask them if something went well, if we can also add additional questions in the conversation. Maybe they call us for one reason, but we enrich it with questions that may make us understand if we're doing well or not.
Welcome to the E-commerce Toolbox Expert Perspectives, a podcast by Noibu, where we explore the elite strategies and cutting-edge insights with our expert guests. Get ready to propel your e-commerce business to the next level.
Welcome to another episode of the E-commerce Toolbox Experts Perspective. Joining us today, we have Lorenzo Riberto, all the way over from beautiful Milan. Welcome, Lorenzo.
Thank you, Kailin, for having me.
I always like to start off by learning a bit about your background. So why don't you tell us, obviously you have a very rich background. You worked at different groups like Caring, VF. Maybe talk to us a bit about your career journey and how you ended up in a senior role at Rossignol.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I'm very happy about my journey because actually I found myself in this role quite by accident. So originally I started by exploring linguistics and foreign cultures. I graduated in Japanese, so that's my main field until I met a professor and she told me, hey, why don't you check out this new company? It was a Yux Net-a-Porter group. It was not even so new at that time, but I kind of discovered that there was a job called project manager. And this job was all about implementing new capabilities, bringing innovation, following projects. And I also learned that innovation and digital were one of my biggest passions that had always been there, kind of, but I didn't know it was a job. So yeah, it started there with small projects and then, let's say, found a way into also Caring Group. They saw me in Yux Net-a-Porter Group. We create synergies. And at first I was more working on technical stuff, which is definitely very important to lay the foundation to understand how this whole ecosystem works. But then I also approached, let's say, more the commercial and the customer-centric way of working. So I started listening more to customers, understand more about what I was doing. So not only how to do it, but why we were doing it. And then we started talking about Omnichannel. It was around 2015, 16. And the idea of connecting online and offline worlds, so not as two separated worlds, but really just one single experience, which was also what customers wanted. And I went a little bit for actually 6 years into VF. I worked with Timberland and Vans, North Face, very, very nice brands. And at some point, I also had the chance to join a Prada group, but that was a small parenthesis. I actually decided to transition to Rossignol Group, which is where I work today. And it's actually a very nice experience because I really had the chance to see 360 every type of interaction that our customers have with us. And definitely the voice of customer and trying to find the best experiences, making life easy for everyone is what makes my job very engaging every day.
Amazing. And what's really interesting is I already heard you say omnichannel in there. Maybe do we want to back things up and maybe talk to us a bit about like what is omnichannel? Obviously, you've been in it for a while. It's been more and more. I've been hearing it more and more over the last couple of years. So maybe talk to us a bit, like what is actually omnichannel?
Yeah.
What does it mean?
Yeah, I think it's been a buzzword for a long time now, meaning that the first time I heard it talking about omnichannel, I think most people were just thinking about being consistent in the way we were communicating to customers in online, offline, digital advertising, but also physical advertising. If I have to frame omnichannel as I see it, it's really a way to provide customers with what they need, when they need it, and where they need it. So it's really a way of creating a strategy that listens to customers in the most appropriate ways. Not, let's say, the strategy maybe we had before where companies and brands knew what they wanted to give to customers. Now we need to be more humble within brands and understand what customers actually want from us. And create the type of consistency, the type of service that can really give the best possible experience and ultimately close the sale whenever they want to make a purchase.
What's the difference between a normal omnichannel strategy and a truly integrated omnichannel strategy? And what are some of the kind of key differentiators where you've seen it done maybe not so well and in other places where you've seen it done really well?
Yeah, so I think that the moment you start to be omnichannel or you want to start, you realize that you're missing a lot of tools and a lot of processes. So at the beginning, you may say, I want to be there for my customer, and there is a lot of human manual activities. For example, if you want, just recovering a little bit what I was saying before, but if I'm in a store, I don't have a product in the store, the customers want to buy it, and I have it somewhere else in my warehouses, I can always make a phone call, try to locate that product, and ultimately be able to serve the customers and close the sale there. However, you need to get also systems and processes to support this, because not always the employees have the time to do it, and not always they have even the kind of the skill set to do it. So I would say that from the moment you start being omnichannel until where you are really integrated and you can call yourself an omnichannel brand, you get a lot of investments in terms of softwares. And you also need to break down a little bit those legacy processes that have been there for 5, 10, 20 years. Learn how to manage these new needs, requirements from the customers, and ultimately you will see them responding to that. So the element that tells you are omnichannel is that you see customer satisfaction significantly rising. And you also reduce the complaints by coming from the fact that maybe a customer service team or a store or an e-commerce website are not able to satisfy the customer, even if they are the same brand. So there is this perceived disconnection among the channels that customers have been complaining about, and brands can no longer ignore.
Curious, does building an integrated omni-channel strategy become harder if you do a lot of your business through wholesale distributors?
Yeah.
Meaning like it's, for example, carrying Gucci, and I guess Gucci probably does some sort of like not reselling, but selling through like Nordstrom and stuff, but it's probably much less than having a direct store. Whereas like a Rossignol comes to mind, especially where I live, there's no Rossignol stores, not that I know of at least, and everything's done through distribution channels. So maybe talk to us a bit about how that's different if you have a heavy infrastructure of direct to consumer versus through distribution.
Yeah, it's a very good point, because as a matter of fact, going omnichannel is something you can control in the channels that you actually manage directly. Whenever you put in the wholesale variable, it becomes very messy, not only because with each wholesaler you have different agreements, but also because they have their own way of selling. Their point of sale sometimes is maybe not branded enough, is not even meant to bring that type of brand awareness, brand messaging, brand image. Sometimes they are selling just a portion of your catalog. Sometimes they are selling by focusing on specific features of the product that are relevant for the segment of customers they serve. So it's really difficult to go omnichannel there. But what you should be doing as a brand is anyway to try to find the wholesalers that can reflect as much as possible your brand values, and ultimately make agreements that should, as much as possible, not harm your brand. Because although wholesale is not a direct, let's say, competitor, at the end of the day, different pricing policies, different treatment also the customer, different way of telling the story about the product could affect the brand awareness in the long run, and also your direct sales. So you need to be careful about that.
Yeah, it makes sense. And also at the same time, like your competitors are also likely selling through the same distribution channels, right? So how do you entice, and it starts to become super removed. So it makes a lot of sense. Could impact margins, have channel conflict, things like that. How do you know if your strategy is going well? Like what are some of the KPIs that you've seen employed in the past?
Yeah. So the struggle with omnichannel measurements is that it's really about creating proper tracking system that can check if your customers interacting with you with different, let's say, channels are actually then responding positively in another one. So I can mention, for example, a couple of initiatives that will give us the feeling about that, and some others that are impossible to measure in a way. If you think, for example, in a store, you are trying to, say, close a sale, but that's the specific size of the product is not available, and you manage to close a sale by fetching that item from the e-commerce warehouse, that's easy to measure. So you need to have a way of flag that sale as an omnichannel sale, and you're done. But also, for example, if you give a promo code to an online customer into a newsletter, and you tell them you can use this promo code in the store, you will be able to measure how many sales have been done by using that promo code. So this is as well easy to do. But for example, you promote something in a store. I don't know if customers see something that is very well done in a store and then they buy online, it's not necessarily always easy. to track how if that was effective. There are ways of checking like footfall, connecting in a way customers through channels, but that require a much more evolved infrastructure. So what I always say is that the best way is to try to collect customer data, their email, their opt-in for marketing analysis as much as possible, because the moment they give you their email, you can start a little bit connecting the dots, see what they did in one channel and on the other one, if they are also willing to be targeted, to be kind of marketed with additional campaigns, additional actions that makes it even more effective. I mean, there is not one unique, efficient way to manage all the omnichannel interactions. The one thing that for sure you should always consider is talking to customers. I was talking about the importance of listening to people, to customers, to users. And let's not forget that store associates, for example, but also our customer service team are the very first point of data collection. We can ask them if something went well, if we can also add additional questions in the conversation. Maybe they call us for one reason, but we enrich it with questions that may make us understand if we are doing well or not.
Taking a bit of a turn here, and one of the early things that you'd mentioned is to really employ a true omni-channel strategy. You likely need a bit of digital transformation, especially in retail, because as you know, obviously, if you look at retail over the last 100 years, the percentage of revenue done in store has gone from 100% to probably around, depends on the type of business, 50%, or in some cases even below. So digital transformation is really, really important because the largest store has effectively become a digital asset versus a physical asset. So building out that infrastructure is just a completely different skill set. So maybe talk to us a bit about what is digital transformation. Obviously, some businesses have been better than others in it. We're seeing now luxuries catching up, which means that these marketplaces are actually kind of going away or reducing in value, like when you think of the Farfetches of the world. So long-winded way of asking you, what is digital transformation? How important is it? And could you maybe talk to us a bit about when you've seen it done well versus when you've seen it maybe not so well?
Yeah, so definitely, first of all, digital transformation is something that a lot of companies have been trying to achieve and put in place across the years. And I have to say that I like to work with brands that haven't done this yet, because it's really stimulating. The way digital transformation works is that you first identify, again, what are the key needs that your customers and your employees as well need, because digital transformation is not just meant to sell more to customers, to sell better to customers, but also is a way for us to be more efficient, to cut costs on something and try to let's say, put in place new human activities through the same capacity that before was reallocated to time-consuming manual activities. The starting point there is always, after identifying the needs, to find the right systems. And in the current market, I would say the offer is so huge that it's not even the easiest to pick the right one. I would say that every week, we have new services, new providers that want to help you, want to deliver, let's say, something new for your company. And probably the best way here is to just start with one. Start from small, start identifying the key elements that you want to fix first, and then increase. Also because every year there are really new stuff, there is new stuff. And digital transformation never stops in a way. If you think about the introduction of AI, that's again another digital transformation. Some companies instead maybe at a level of digital transformation when they don't even have a CRM, so a customer relationship manager tool that can even collect the customer data. So digital transformation may represent something different for every company. That's why I said let's start from the immediate needs that the company has and identify the key tools to put in place first. I think that maybe the one mistake that I've seen in some companies when it's up to digital transformation is to say, okay, let's buy the best. And this is something a lot of big brands have done. Let's buy the best, the huge machine, the huge software that costs a lot. And also let's hire the most famous consultancy agency to deliver the best, again, experience, the best integration. That not only is very heavy, costs a lot and takes a lot of time to perform, but ultimately the time you finish the integration that you initially planned, you are already obsolete. So again, start small, implement piece by piece, and always keep your customer needs and your employee needs in mind. Did I answer your question? Shall I reach something?
No, it's good. It makes sense. And I think I've made both mistakes, even in our own business when we're starting out. I chose something that was the wrong infrastructure and we grew too fast. And then I made the other mistake where we chose something too big and complex and we were never able to launch it. So finding that sweet spot is just depending on, and no one ever does a project thinking it's going to grow slowly, if that makes sense. Everyone always thinks it's going to explode. So you need the best and the most expensive thing. But no, it's an interesting balance for sure. I think getting more tactically, and what I'm really, really curious about is, and maybe it's not as big of a deal as I think it is in my head, trying to understand how big of a difference is digital transformation to a brand that does wholesaling. And I guess what I mean by that is businesses that have done wholesaling for most and they don't have direct stores, I guess they're used to a lower margin, if that makes sense, because they have to split from MSRP. So how much more important is it for brands that have traditionally had to go through sales channels like distributors that have stores to nail digitally native? Because it literally could have a pretty big impact on the overall business because the direct-to-consumer sales are just going to have such a higher margin. So maybe talk to us a bit about that.
So, well, it's a very good question also because Rossignol, as a matter of fact, started his journey very late. We could say after 2015, if I'm not wrong, something like that. We started going direct to consumer and we had, in fact, to make all those evaluations, which tools we want, how much we want to invest. Does it even make sense for a brand that has been historically wholesale to go direct to consumer, to have a enhanced digital e-commerce experience? I would say that those are evaluations that you make mostly because you want to focus on your brand identity, brand experience, and you also want to offer services that are perceived much more premium than what a wholesaler could be. So in a way, it's a way to distinct, to make the difference. And I believe that's becoming very significant even as we progress. So sometimes we may say, big wholesaler or big marketplaces are taking over. I actually believe that brands nowadays have really a chance to make a difference if they can create a significant different offer in terms of added values compared to the wholesales. And the digital transformation is needed there because these enhanced services cannot be, let's say, delivered only through human engagement, but they require, softwares to track properly all the product movements to ensure that your customer is served in the best possible way. Even like simply improving the way you ship goods. We didn't talk about shipping so far, but I think that's another important step nowadays because customers have become very, let's say, concerned about environment, for example. So you want to ensure that's super efficient, but is also very green, less paper, less packaging as possible. And all of these, if automated, can really help both companies to save money, so increase the margin, and also customer being more satisfied.
Makes a ton of sense. As we look to wrap up, Lorenzo, anything else you want to share as we're looking to kind of sign off now?
Well, I think that maybe something I would stress once more, and any time that we talk about improving customer experience or making significant changes from a digital perspective, on a omnichannel perspective for a company, is to try and as much as possible listen to the customer voice, to get any chance to collect their input and make a step back, because brands always think they own the truth. But as we progress, we see that customers challenge us and also punish us if we want to be very bold, too bold, let's say, and a little bit bossy in what we offer them.
Cool. Love it. Well, thanks so much for the insights, Lorenzo. It's been an amazing podcast, and thanks again.
Thank you very much for having me, and see you soon.
The E-Commerce Toolbox Expert Perspectives is brought to you by Noibu. To find out more about Noibu and how we can help you debug your e-commerce site and rocket your revenue, visit www.noibu.com. That's Noibu.com. And then make sure to search for the E-Commerce Toolbox Expert Perspectives on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found, and click subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at Noibu, thanks for listening.